for giving me the opportunity to read your natal chart for you. I'm very excited to get into your reading. So I have you here as August 24th, 1968, born at 7:28 a.m. in New Brunswick, New Jersey in the United States. You said you currently live in Des Plaines in Illinois Central Time. You said northwest of Chicago. So the way that I do my natal chart readings is I go over first impressions first, okay? So whatever jumps out at me when I first pull up your natal chart, from there it's going to be a flow, and then toward the end of the reading, I'll go through each of the houses, planets, and signs, and what all of that means if I haven't touched on it already in the earlier part of the reading. Now, also, in my reading, I like to go over the numerological aspect of things, okay? So I like to look at your day number, your life path number, and I like to see if there are any parallels between that and a natal chart itself. Now, in terms of the numerological aspect of things, I am very, very surface level. So if there's anything here that does pique your interest in terms of numerology, I'm sure you can find more information either online or in books. So for you, I have you here as the 6-day number. So the 6-day number in numerology basically is all about family, okay? So that's when we reduce down the digits of your day number, which is 24, it reduces down to the number 6, okay? So it's all about family. It could also be that family plays a huge role in your life in this incarnation, okay? The life path for you is 11, okay? So this is one of the master numbers, okay? So the 11 life path basically signifies a master spiritual teacher, okay? So a lot of the time, these individuals are going to be, very, very intuitive, very in tune with the world around them. They're going to, a lot of the time, actually have very challenging lives and challenging upbringings, okay? The 11 life path, or even the 11 date number, because you kind of incarnate with a lot of light energy, okay? It is a master number, so when it's at its highest vibration, it's 11. When it's operating out of like the day-to-day vibration, or maybe when it's not in its full self-alignment, you're going to be operating out of number 2, which is all about relationships, and it can also be, a lot to do with codependency, right? A lot of like maybe, putting others first instead of putting yourself first, okay? So in your highest self-alignment, you're going to be operating out of 11, okay? These people a lot of the time are very influential, okay? They tend to have, once again, challenging upbringing. Sometimes, some of them might have near-death experiences, okay? It's a spiritual lifetime, okay? And you're here to basically help people, okay? In one way, shape, or form. A lot of the time you'll see podcasters, for example, have 11 life path or day number. A lot of politicians have 11 life path or day number. A lot of influential people have that 11 energy basically taking place either in the day number or the life path number itself, because it is that high vibration, okay? Here to be of influence in one way, shape, or form. Now, it is a spiritual teacher. It doesn't mean you have to teach about spirituality, okay? It's just like, I find that all humans at the end of the day are healers, as long as they, are speaking their truth, sharing their journey, sharing things that they have gone through. You're still going to assist someone in their own path as well, okay? So basically that is the 11 life path in a nutshell. So let's go ahead and jump into the astrological aspect of things here. Wow, when I pulled up your chart, I was like, oh my goodness, so much Virgo energy here, okay? So I have you here as the sun in Virgo, 12th house. Moon is in Virgo, 12th house. Mercury and Venus are in Virgo, but in the 1st house. You've got Jupiter in Virgo in the 12th. You got Pluto in Virgo in the 1st, and then Fortune is in Virgo in the 1st, and then your ascendant is also Virgo, okay? So the direction that you're heading in this lifetime is basically a healer lifetime, which is so interesting, okay? I just mentioned that in terms of that 11 life path. Now, once again, in terms of being a healer, it doesn't have to be a conventional healer. It could be a doctor, let's say with Virgo energy, absolutely. It could be a healer in this way, let's say it's a doctor or someone who works in the medical profession, absolutely. It could be an unconventional healer as well, right? Or it could just be someone who is, assisting people in their journey in one way, shape, or form. Let's say you create something and it helps people. Let's say you share your journey and it helps people, like something of this sort, okay? Just basically your own life experience through that, okay, and maybe things that you have overcome, maybe certain hardships that maybe you have had, okay, are going to help and assist other people on their journey as well, okay? So you have a bunch of 12th house energy here. So Sun, Moon, and Jupiter all in the 12th house. You're basically a 12th houser. This is a challenge, okay, when you have the 12th house energy. I'm sure you know. First of all, you tend to be very, very psychic, okay, when you incarnate down here onto this earth plane. You basically incarnate with the ability to see through the veil, okay? So in the earlier part of the life of the 12th houser, you know, they might not necessarily have the awareness yet that they are psychic. Probably by this point in time, you do have this awareness that you're super intuitive, you see through the veil. People don't necessarily see the world around you the way that, you know, you do, for example, okay? You see things for what they are, not what they are presented to be. You see through people's masks, okay? You see through people who are fake. And also, this is another healer energy as well, that 12th house, okay? Especially having the Sun and the 12th house too. You also have Sun square Neptune. When you were growing up, you know, you could have struggled with the sense of self, with the identity. A lot of the time, this is an absence of a father figure early on in life, mental, emotional, or physical absence. The Sun in the 12th house. And even Saturn retrograde, okay, is a similar energy, obviously not the same, but having Saturn retrograde is the absence of a father figure early on in life. It could be mental, it could be emotional, it could be physical absence. He could have been an escapist, for example. He could have been physically there, but let's say he was working all the time, so he wasn't at home, or let's say he was sitting on the couch all the time and watching TV, and he was kind of not paying attention to his surroundings. You know what I mean? There are different ways of, you know, absence, let's say, of that father figure. It doesn't just always have to be physical absence, but absolutely could have manifested into physical absence as well, okay? And not only do you have Sun in the 12th, Saturn is a retrograde, you also have Sun square Neptune, okay? So a huge theme for you in this lifetime, because you have this absence of the father figure or that dominant masculine role in your life, okay? Basically, a huge theme for you in this life is going to be mastering the masculine energy within, okay? Because first of all, yes, the Sun could be the father, it could be that dominant masculine role in your life, but later on it translates to, yes, masculines around you, okay? So people who operate out of that masculine energy, but also eventually it's going to be your own internal masculine energy within, okay? So when you have these energies, you basically might struggle, let's say, with boundaries or with a strong sense of self. Maybe this affected you, let's say, in the earlier part of your life, okay? Not knowing who you are, okay? With this energy, a lot of the time, you'll see Sun in the 12th house people, because they don't have that direction of a masculine role, of a masculine figure in their life, for example, okay? Well, what happens in this case is a lot of the time they turn to spirituality. Some of them might go toward religion, for example, okay, looking toward God, right? But again, you know, different people have different expressions of God, the creator source, right? But some people might take the religious route, absolutely, because again, you know, they didn't have that person leading them and guiding them, so they eventually turn towards something higher, some sort of higher power. And throughout your life, I'm sure that there have been maybe certain situations or circumstances that have pointed you toward this higher power. Now, it doesn't always have to be religion, it could absolutely be spirituality. Now, something important to keep in mind is that, you know, these energies have the tendency to be prone to, let's say, cults, or giving their power away a lot of the time to people, because again, unconsciously, this energy is looking to be led. I don't feel that for your energetic field. Maybe this was something in the earlier part of your life. You could have mastered this already by this point in time, because we do go through secondary progressions as well in our natal charts too. So you probably have progressed out of a lot of these 12 house energies, but that's basically the 12 house, okay? So here to master boundaries, master the sense of self, master the identity, is basically that solar plexus chakra, okay? You are mastering that core energy within, okay? With that solar plexus chakra. So, you know, it's the masculine energy within, it's the perseverance, it's being a go-getter, it is being, let's say, even ambitious, going after goals, right? These types of things, where it's like the 12th house, you know, could also spend a lot of time in isolation. They have a lot of the time, you know, a lot of disappointment energy attached to them, especially when it comes to the world around them. And then they have the tendency to go off into isolation, right? And it's like sometimes the 12th house energy gets overwhelmed by all of the energies around them, and then they need the time to, let's say, recharge and, you know, detox and be in their own energy, but they're not meant to be in isolation too long. They're actually meant to be out there engaging with the world, because you have a healing energy around you, it's a healing aura. Now, with that being said, you know, you have a healing energy, right? So it's like you could also attract a lot of opportunists towards you, or people who want to siphon off of your energy, for example, when you have that 12th house energy going on as well. Because again, you have a healing energy, you know, it's going to be very accepting of people. It's going to be very accommodating to people, right? People might feel very comfortable around you as a 12th house person, you know? So it's like, again, you'll attract everybody towards you, especially when you're a 12th house person. And it's like, it's up to you to develop discernment, which maybe you already have by this point in time. Maybe this affected you in the earlier part of your life more so. Okay, but it's up to you to develop some sort of discernment to be able to sift through these people, right? You know, to be able to see someone who is dark, or someone who is of light, or someone who is an opportunist trying to siphon off of your energy, or someone who has genuine intentions, right? Because it's that 12th house, you see people through that rose-colored lens, right? And then with that being said, you know, you might give people, let's say, too many opportunities, or let's say too many chances. Let's say people are super shadowy, for example. Well, in that case, you're going to have to, again, master boundaries, right, with these individuals, to not be overly accommodating, especially having all this Virgo energy, this Virgo stellium that you got going on in here, okay? You might be overly accommodating to people. You might be tending to everybody, right? It's very sacrificial, this energy, Virgo, yes, but also the 12th house, right? A lot of sacrificing for people around you. So it's going to be a matter of, you know, learning to fill your own cup first, right? Maybe by this point in time you already have, but like, you know, it's interesting because as a healer, right? Someone who is here to help the collective, be of service in a one way, shape, or form with all this Virgo energy, especially the direction that you're heading in with the Virgo rising. Now, a huge plus with the Virgo rising is that rising sign can be your physical appearance, right? So when you have a Virgo rising, you can look younger, okay, than you are for a longer period of time, right? So that's nice, you're blessed with that. You could also kind of have this like youthful appearance, okay, when you have a Virgo rising. I could always spot a Virgo rising, okay, because it's exactly this type of vibe, right? So physically you could look and appear that way, but also at the same time, you know, in terms of the direction that you're heading in, which is a rising sign, you are going in this direction of the healer, is basically what that is, right? But at the same time, again, you're going to have to master. It's like walking the line between, yes, helping people, being of service, which is Virgo, but at the same time, you know, not letting them deplete you and not letting them drain you, making sure that certain things are an equal energy exchange and equal give and take, right? Because again, with the 12th house, even the Virgo energy is very sacrificial. It's very much willing to give a lot of themselves to people for little in return. And because there isn't this equal energy exchange, well, then you might feel, let's say, drained, okay? For example, that could be something that takes place. And anytime you feel drained around people, it's because there isn't an equal energy exchange, is basically what that is, okay? So that could be something that you're meant to master in this lifetime. Now, your sun is conjunct the moon, so that means the mother and the father were on the same page in terms of raising you, okay? Maybe they had very similar personalities. Maybe it was the same person, okay, for example, with the sun and the moon. But that's basically what it is when you have sun conjunct moon. It's nice for you also because that means your ego, okay, which is the sun, which is your identity, and the moon, which is your emotional world, okay, and your emotional nature are working together, okay? It's a very nice energy because it's like you're not conflicted internally, okay, when you basically have this conjunction going on. Now, you also have Sun trine Saturn, you know, in terms of the home and the upbringing, could have been very strict, okay? There could have been a lot of discipline, okay? Because it is the sun, it could be the father, so the father could have been like this. Maybe he was working, let's say, all the time. Maybe he was a workaholic. Maybe he had to work, for example, right? So maybe that was the reason he was not, let's say, as present, okay? He could have been there, but let's say he was working a lot of the time with the sun trine Saturn. But now within yourself, you kind of have a little bit more of this grounding energy to you, which is nice. In the midst of all of this Neptune and 12th house and like blurred lines and blurred energies, okay, that are taking place, especially when it comes to the identity, that trine, the sun trine Saturn is going to help ground you, okay? It's going to ground you back down into this physical realm and into this physical reality, okay? It's basically what that is. And it's nice because you could have grown up, let's say, with a lot of discipline around you, but this energy works well down here, okay? It's basically what that is with the Saturnian energy, because this earth plane is Saturnian, right? So when you have Saturn aspects basically taking place in your chart, it gives you that practical energy, okay? It allows you to, again, you know, put in time and effort and dedication towards something. Let's say you're working toward a goal to get some sort of outcome, and then Saturn basically rewards you and blesses you, okay? So with all the Virgo energy, yes, you could be also very grounded with the Virgo energy in here. What's interesting with Virgo, especially because you have it as a stellium here, what's interesting with Virgo is that, Virgo energy is mutable, right? So it's an earth sign and then it backs off of Pisces, so they tend to be very psychic. Even the Virgo moon is actually one of the most psychic moons, okay, or intuitive, whatever way, shape, or form you want to look at it, okay? Because it's like they get the information and then they act on it, right? They think of it, they act on it. They don't think twice about it, right? Versus like Pisces that kind of gets lost in the sauce, okay? They kind of go off into the ethers and they're thinking about everything and they're thinking about all the possibilities. Like it's very vast. The thing is, yes, Virgo moon is like this, but you do still have it in the 12th house, okay? So when I see 12th house energy in someone's chart, the sun in the 12th, the moon in the 12th, basically these are past life enemies coming through as these individuals, okay? So in your case, the sun being in the 12th is past life enemies coming through as the father, okay, or masculines in your life. And then the moon is going to be past life enemies coming through as the mother or the feminines in your life, okay? You can look at it this way. And also at the same time, it's karma that you're clearing with these individuals. Basically, like, you can kind of look at it as you guys kind of travel together and you're clearing something here, and it's karmic, usually connected to a previous lifetime with this energy that is taking place here, okay? You do have moon conjunct Mercury, so having moon conjunct Mercury is nice because this is another one of those energies where it's like your heart and your emotional world is working in tandem with the intellectual world, with the logical mind, right? So it's like, it's nice to have energies like this because it's like you're balanced as a person, right? Versus someone, let's say if they had an opposition or something else going on in here, they might be, let's say, constantly conflicted, or even if it's a square, right? They might be constantly conflicted between what the heart wants to do versus the mind, and they could go back and forth a lot of the time. For you, you don't have this problem, right? Everything is working together, okay? The ego and even the moon, which is the emotional world, and the mind, the Mercury as well. So it's nice, okay? All of these energies are working together, okay? Now you have Mercury in the first house. Having Mercury in the first is a very nice energy because basically this gives you that gift of gab. Do you know what I mean? It gives you the undertone of having a Gemini rising. So it doesn't mean your rising sign now changes. You just take on some of these traits, okay, when you have Mercury in the first house. So basically having that Mercury in the first house gives you the undertone of having a Gemini rising. It doesn't mean your rising sign now changes, okay? It just means you take on some of the traits of a Gemini rising. So it's nice because sometimes when people have, let's say, sun in the 12th, might have Mercury in the 12th, okay? But in your case, Mercury is in the first. So it's nice when it comes to communication, when it comes to speaking, when it comes to using your throat chakra, okay? It's in that first house. So you could be very clear, let's say, in terms of the way that you speak. Now, because Mercury is in Virgo, okay? The Mercury being in Virgo could be a lot of overthinking, for example, right? A lot of going into the head, for example, okay? But again, I don't feel like you have too much of this issue because you do have a lot of this energy of like moon conjunct Mercury, for example, where it's like the heart and the head. When I say heart, it's like your intuitive muscle, right? And the intuition is basically, telling us where we need to go in this current lifetime, in this current incarnation, right? Versus the logical mind, which kind of sometimes tries to talk us out of that because sometimes certain, let's say, actions might not necessarily make sense, for example, okay? But it's nice, you have these energies working together, the moon and the Mercury, they're basically on the same page, okay? So Mercury being in the first house, once again, it gives you the undertone of having a Gemini rising. So this is another one of those youthful looks, okay? Even when you grow up and you're older, okay, you still might look younger, let's say, than your age with that energy. You even have Venus in the first house, which is nice because you tend to be good looking when you have Venus in the first house. You're blessed with looks, or even like, you might be blessed with like charm, and you could be funny because the Venus in the first gives you the undertone of having a Libra rising, or even the undertone of having a Taurus rising as well, okay? And also Mercury can also give you the undertone of having a Virgo rising as well, okay? Because Mercury is ruled by both Gemini and Virgo, but you already have the Virgo rising going on, okay? So yes, Mercury in the first gives you the youthful appearance. Venus in the first gives you the charming, attractive appearance. Even maybe your mannerism could be attractive, for example, to people. Maybe the way that you speak, for example, the way that you express yourself, the way that you dress, okay, with the Venus in the first. Now the thing is, Venus in the first, okay, what's interesting with this energy is because you take on some of the Libra rising traits, okay, doesn't mean you're a Libra rising now. Once again, you just take on some of these traits, okay? Venus in the first house, basically these individuals, might struggle, let's say, with people pleasing, okay? I don't feel that really so much for your energy just as I tap in, but maybe in the earlier part of your life, right? There could have been a lot of struggle, let's say, with people pleasing, or like what the family wants versus what you want, or what society wants for you versus what you want, or let's say it's a partner, you know what I mean? Like there could be a lot of this conflicting energy within, let's say in the earlier part of your life. A lot of the time the people pleasing with Libra comes from this, let's say, internal dilemma, right? But this could have been something that you've overcome. When you overcome this energy and you're in the divine version, right? Again, it is another gift of like speaking and connecting with people when you have Venus in the first house, okay? You are able to connect to all people. You have probably a lot of friends, right? You could be very funny, even with the Mercury in the first house, okay? These energies are meant to be interacting and communicating with people, okay? So it kind of feels like maybe in the early part of your life, like let's say with the sun and the moon, being in the 12th house, there could have been a lot of hiding, for example, a lot of you being behind the scenes, maybe not, having a strong sense of self. You probably progressed out of this already, okay, because the sun does progress every 30 years, okay, approximately in the secondary progression. So you progress out of the 12th and you eventually move into the first, and maybe even at this point in time, you could even be, let's say, even in that second house, sun as well, right? But in the early part of your life, there could have been a lot of, let's say, hiding, not knowing who you are, or a lot of compromising for other people, right? But as you overcome that, as the time has gone on, maybe even like clearing karma, let's say with the home, okay, specifically with the moon being the home and even the sun being the father or the moon being the mother. Sometimes the roles are reversed, but in your case, because it is in the same sign, like basically they were kind of having a lot of the similar personality traits, okay? Here's another thing too that I want to mention also, because you do have a lot of this Virgo energy. Something that maybe you have already overcome or are meant to overcome in this lifetime is perfectionism, okay? With Virgo, a lot of the issue with them is, especially when you have it in the sun and you have it in the moon, the mother and the father, okay, tend to be very critical of you as a child. So sometimes this energy always kind of feels like it's subconscious with them. They feel like they're not necessarily good enough, but it's not even like that they're not good enough. Sometimes they project this energy outward. So it's like sometimes you'll see Virgo energy, let's say, looking for a lot of different jobs a lot of the time, because it's like they're still looking for more, right? Or let's say you have a goal, right? And it's like you achieve that goal, then you're looking for the next higher goal, right? And so on and so forth, which can be a good thing. It depends what the energy is behind why you're doing what you're doing. But a lot of the time with Virgo energy, what tends to happen with them is like there's this energy of things not being enough. Do you know what I mean? Or it's like, let's say they buy a house, they like renovate it, and it's like then they renovate it and they don't like it, and then they renovate it again, right? It's like Virgo, because it bounces off of Pisces, they are idealists also, okay, and they're looking for some sort of perfection in this lifetime. But the Virgo karma, if you want to look at it as karma or a thing that they're meant to learn or master in this lifetime, is that perfection does not exist, okay? And that's going to be very challenging for Virgos because they spent a lot of their life trying to be perfect, right? Like this energy, whatever job that you pick, okay, or whatever you did for, let's say, work or whatever, every realm of life with these energies in here, okay, you're basically going to be the best at it, okay, energetically, okay, or like trying to become super competent at that job, or like let's say you're working, at a certain job, you're the best employee, and then you're, let's say, training others, right? Virgo energies are always going to be very, very good at whatever they do, okay, because again, they're striving for perfection. So compared to like other signs, right, like let's say there's other employees or coworkers or colleagues or whatever, right, that you work with, like compared to them, let's say they don't have Virgo energy in their chart. Well, in this particular case, it's like you're always going to be the best employee or employee of the month, for example. And this starts from a very young age, especially sun and moon in Virgo. A lot of the time with these energies, what I've noticed is like you tend to be the competent child, for example. So like the parents are kind of like, okay, we don't have to worry about you as much, okay, because you're the competent child. Sometimes, let's say it's like you start to help the other children, for example. Let's say there's other like kids in the home or whatever, like things like this, for example, because you're the most competent one, you're the most responsible one, the parents can trust you the most. Now, what I will say is Virgo kind of plays this role throughout their life, okay? Basically where they are playing this role of being, again, the best, perfect, like as close to perfection as possible, because like perfection obviously does not exist, right? So it's interesting to see Virgo energy, because when they kind of go into the other end, let's say they are kind of like at burnout, because that's something that happens with Virgo energy as well, okay, because they do tend to overgive to everybody around them. Let's say they're feeling burnt out, or they're just kind of like over it, or like let's say there's some sort of failure. If they go into the shadow of Virgo, they tend to be very messy, for example, okay? They tend to completely disconnect from this reality, because then they kind of go into the oppositional energy, which is shadow Pisces, right? And they kind of like start to, you know, like wild out, for example, or like they're not, you know, being, let's say, healthy, for example, in a certain case, right? Because Virgo is all about health, right? So for example, Virgo being all about health, you could spend so much of your life, you know, like, you know, making sure that you eat, you know, properly, and this meal and that meal, and counting everything and whatever, right? All the calories and whatever, you know, the protein that you need to eat, like making sure that everything is like equal, whatever, right? So you can spend so much of your time doing this, but then sometimes Virgo, if they do it too much, they get energetically burnt out, okay? And then they go into the opposite end, where it's like, let's say they go into like eating just junk food and just garbage. Like, I'm kind of giving just like this as a random example, so you can kind of get what I'm saying. I'm not saying this is necessarily you, or that this has taken place for you, but I'm kind of giving you the example to understand how Virgo energy works when it's in the extreme, right? Because they spend so much time trying to be in this perfection energy that sometimes when they're kind of like, okay, I'm over this, or they're burnt out, or it's just too much, right? Or sometimes, let's say it's a failure that triggers them into the oppositional energy. They can really go into the oppositional energy of, you know, like kind of going into that shadow Pisces energy, because the oppositions all work together. And the shadow Pisces is like disconnecting from reality, escapism, you know, it could be, again, eating unhealthily, not being connected to the body, not really feeling motivated, like these types of things, getting really messy, you know, kind of going into the crown chakra, but really in the shadow sense. So that's something that happens with that Virgo energy, right? So it's a balance, just like anything at the end of the day. The Virgo energy needs to kind of learn, yes, you know, you can, you know, work hard, and you can, you know, get as close to perfection as possible, but you don't have to always be putting all of your energy into like trying to maintain this perfect image, is basically what that is. Because it's like, again, Virgo's meant to learn that perfection doesn't exist, and sometimes if they're always in this like energy of trying to be, again, perfect, sometimes the smallest thing can kind of set them off, and then they go into that oppositional energy. And sometimes, like anytime, I call this the pendulum swing, personally, because it's like when people are healing or like neutralizing an energy within them, you go into one extreme, and then you go into the complete opposite extreme, and then you neutralize somewhere in the middle, okay? In terms of your own energetic field, I don't feel that for you just as I tap into the energy. Like, I just feel like you probably have neutralized a lot of these energies within you. So maybe this is something that affected you, let's say, in the earlier part of your life, okay? You also have Uranus. So Uranus is also in Virgo. It is in that first house as well. So having Uranus in the first house basically gives you the undertone of having an Aquarius rising. So having the undertone of having an Aquarius rising, basically you're going to be someone who is super open, okay, to people, non-judgmental. You are going to have a lot of friends from a lot of different walks of life. Like, you've seen it all, you've heard it all, okay? And then you have Pluto in the first house. So here is where things get interesting, okay? Pluto in the first house gives you the undertone of having a Scorpio rising, okay? Doesn't mean your rising sign now changes, but you take on some Scorpio types of traits, okay? Which is interesting to me. You've also got Mercury conjunct Pluto, you got Venus conjunct Pluto, you have Uranus conjunct Pluto and Neptune sextile Pluto, but that's more so generational, so we'll get to that. But regardless, in terms of the personal planets, you got Mercury conjuncting Pluto, and then Venus is conjuncting Pluto. You have Mercury in the third house as well, okay? So on top of this whole story, there's this undertone layer, okay, that's taking place in terms of your energetic field that is Plutonian, okay? That is Scorpio-esque, okay? You take on some of these traits. Pluto in the first house, you can look at this as a destructor, okay? So someone who is coming through people's lives to destruct, okay? Not obviously on purpose. It's not something that you do on purpose, right? But you will see, and you probably have seen throughout your life, that people either love you or they don't like you, okay? It's the Pluto in the first house. You are mirroring energy. So part of your life purpose, okay, and this could also maybe be part of your healing path as well, is to mirror energy to other people, okay? To show them where are their strengths, where are their weaknesses. Because the thing is, if you bring out such a polarizing reaction out of someone, okay, whether they really like you or they don't like you, okay? Basically, they're seeing something within you that they either really like that's within them, right? Or something that they don't like that's within them, right? So that's kind of what happens. And you may have noticed probably throughout your life, okay, I'm just checking here. Yes, okay, so you have the Sun square Neptune. You have the sun in the 12th house, and you got that Pluto in the first house. A lot of energy is being projected onto you, okay, in this lifetime. And this is why also sometimes sun in the 12th, even the sun square Neptune energies, okay, might struggle to develop a strong sense of self because you don't know who you are, because people are projecting an idea onto you. And a lot of the time this energy, because you're a little bit out of body, you're a little bit more psychic or intuitive, like whatever way, shape, or form you want to look at it, okay, but still you're a little bit out of body, so you're actually unconsciously a lot of the time picking up on people's projections of you and then actually feeding into that, right? And this is why the energy struggles with the sense of self, okay? Again, you may have overcome this over time, but you might notice this happening in subtle ways in your relationships, okay? Where you might pick up on, again, this is so subconscious because it's energy, right? And we're all energy first. So because, again, we're all energy and we're also all telepathic, right? And like everyone's energy field is comprised of their thoughts, basically, right? That's what the energy field is, the auric field, if you want to look at it that way as well. So because it's comprised of the thoughts and the emotions and all these things, and the emotions are just prolonged thoughts, okay? That's kind of how something turns into emotional energy. So when you kind of put two people together, two energy fields together, you start picking up, okay, unconsciously, whether you're aware of it or not, on that person's energy field, right? So having the sun in the 12th, sun square Neptune, a lot of the time you're picking up on something that people are perceiving of you, right? Whether it's a projection, whether it's good or bad, okay? And then you're feeding into that, okay? And it's interesting because you might notice, because you have the Pluto in the first, you know, part of the karma, you can look at it, or life purpose, or something that you're doing here, okay, down here on this earth plane, is destructing this, okay? I know it sounds a little bit intense when I say destructing. It's not like you're purposefully doing it, but sometimes the Pluto in the first house energy is literally like a tornado, okay? It comes into someone's life and it basically, you know, shuffles everything around for them and they leave, right? So the Pluto in the first leaves. You come through energetically, you know, bring things up for the person, and you know, it's literally like a tornado, right? And then you leave energetically, right? It's not even on purpose. You're not doing this on purpose. It's just the karma. You can look at it as the karma or part of your purpose or what you're doing down here, okay, on this earth plane. You leave, you move on to the next thing. You might have not even noticed, okay, that you have done any of this. It's just who you are, especially when you're living in your truth. And this is why it's important for everybody to live in their truth, right? And then through you doing this, okay, by this whole process, this alchemical process, you are now forcing that person to pick up the debris, okay, okay, all of the leftover items after a tornado, that is, okay, I know this is a little bit of an intense explanation, but that's actually what's happening energetically, okay? That person has to pick up everything and be like, what just happened, okay? So it's a destroyer, okay? Energetically, you're coming through people's lives to basically shatter things for them, okay? Now, in combination with everything else that's going on in here, you know, I can see how even with the Mercury in the first and the Venus in the first, you being friendly, okay? You kind of pulling people in, especially with the 12th house, you might seem, let's say, even innocent to people, or like energetically harmless, or just like, you know, you might have, let's say, a lot of this healing energy. Like, people are drawn to you. You're pulling people in, okay? With this, like, you know, innocent type of energy. And when I say innocent, I don't mean this in like a you don't know anything about life type of energy. I just mean this in like, you know, people let their guard down, basically, is what it is. Around you, within the Pluto in the first house, okay, kind of distracts everything. So that's kind of the karma here, okay? Pulling people in, being really friendly, even with the Venus in the first house, maybe having a lot of friends, and then leaving these individuals transformed. So you can do this either on an individual level. You can take advantage of this because you have a lot of first house energy in here as well. Maybe it's like a business that you do and you help people transform as well, right? But it's not, obviously it's not malicious, right? I know these, you know, terms like the destructor and destroyer like sounds intense, but it's not like you're doing this in a malicious way. It's just part of your karma down here. So you may have wondered maybe in the earlier part of your life, first of all, people may have like projected onto you a lot, or, you know, in certain situations you may have been scapegoated, for example, or people may have been explosive toward you, that Pluto in the first house. And you may have wondered, let's say, like, wait, what is it? Like, what is it that I'm doing? And it's not anything that you're doing. It's just your energetic field that is bringing up these feelings in people. And you can kind of look at it as your overall karma in this lifetime, or purpose, or whatever way, shape, or form you want to look at it, right? But that's kind of what's happening here with that Pluto in the first house. You could be very blunt also with this energy of the Pluto in the first, even like the Mercury being in the first house. It's nice, okay? Because again, like I mentioned, sometimes people who have Sun in the 12th, they might have Mercury in the 12th house as well, and then they struggle with speech. You don't have this issue, okay? So part of also your purpose is to actually speak and use your throat chakra in this lifetime, because you also have a bunch of Mercury aspects here taking place, okay? You have the Moon conjunct Mercury, which we spoke about already. You have Mercury conjunct Venus. A lot of the time you will see this, again, in people who are charming, okay? And the way that they speak, okay? It's charismatic, right? It's a charisma. And again, you know, you have that 11th life path. These are charismatic energies, okay? And, you know, these people are sometimes energetically more elevated or more advanced. It doesn't mean you're better than anyone. It doesn't mean that anybody is worse. It's just where people are on their journey, right? So sometimes people who have a little bit more of a higher mission, they incarnate with a little bit more of this energy, right? This manifester's energy, because you have that 12th house taking place in here. You have a lot of manifestation potential, right? But also when you're younger and you're not aware, you might get energetically targeted, for example, right? To kind of distract you off of your path. That's basically the whole battle down here on this earth plane, is this whole push-pull between, you know, being distracted and pulled off of your path. You know, that is always going to be different for different people, because it depends what those soft spots are, basically, right? You know, everybody has a certain soft spot or wound or whatever way, shape, or form you want to look at it. That's kind of what gets energetically targeted. People get placed into your path, into your vicinity, into your circle, and then they kind of take you off your path for a period of time. This is why you have to have like the dream or the goal or the desire or the purpose or where you're going, like whatever way, shape, or form you want to look at it. That has to be stronger versus the wounds. It's not about fully healing, because sometimes, again, because you do have even this Virgo energy in here, like this energy can kind of like focus on like, okay, no, I have to be perfect, I have to fully heal. It's not necessarily this, okay? Because I don't think anybody can be fully healed. It's just a matter of awareness is really what that is. Just having the awareness that you have these tendencies, or you could be prone to certain energies, for example, right, that could take place, that could throw you off your path, right? And it's also what I've noticed with people, because it's like, you have people, let's say, who are successful in this world, and they're not 100% healed, right? Nobody is, right? But again, you know, you want to have the goal or the life purpose or the mission, like whatever it is, right? Whatever way, shape, or form you want to look at it, the ambition, right? That just has to be stronger, okay? And you kind of have to be more focused on that versus these wounds that could kind of pull you off your path, right? So it's kind of like a matter of mastering these energies within, okay? So that's Mercury conjunct Venus, okay? Very, you know, eloquent, even maybe in the way that you speak. It's the gift of gab, right? It's like you're able to speak, you're able to sell anything, even with Mercury in the first house. People just want to listen, is basically what that is. And even watch you at the same time while you're speaking, right? Because there's something here that is Venusian, right? That's what Venus is. It's Venusian. It's very charismatic. It is, you know, very nice to look at, okay? So that's Mercury conjunct Venus. You also have Mercury conjunct Jupiter, okay? So these people love to learn about higher-minded things. These people also are always like, what's my purpose? You know, what's the point of life? What is the purpose of life? Like, that's Mercury conjunct Jupiter. You're always thinking about these higher-minded things. Also with these energies, I could see this manifesting into someone who does a lot of schooling. For example, Mercury conjunct Jupiter, okay? Let's say they go off and they do the traditional route, master's and PhD and so on and so forth, okay? With Mercury conjunct Jupiter, or it could be not traditional. Let's say you learn for yourself, right? Even let's say you being into astrology or knowing about astrology, right? That's a combination of these energies. Mercury conjunct Jupiter, you also have Mercury conjunct Pluto. I'll get to that in just a second. The 12th house energy that's taking place in here, right? So all of these energies, Pluto in the first house too, you know, just like learning about philosophies and religions and esoteric things and hidden things and astrology, like I mentioned, like all these things are going to be things that are of an interest to you, okay? So Mercury conjunct Jupiter is about learning, right? So you're blessed in the realm of the mind, right? Because also Mercury is in the first house, okay? Blessed in the realm of learning. Maybe you like to learn a lot of different things. Maybe you want to get a lot of certifications, okay? That could also manifest that way as well with Mercury conjunct Jupiter. Basically, it's all about learning. It's a lifelong learner, but at the same time, you know, this energy, the Jupiter energy, goes off, learns, comes back and teaches, okay? That's kind of like the, again, you can look at it as karma or the way the energy works, right? It goes off, learns something, comes back, teaches, or wants to be a motivational speaker, for example, as well, okay? Especially, again, Mercury in the first is nice, having that strong mercurial energy, right, taking place here. Well, in this particular case, again, you want to use that throat chakra if you're not using it already. When I say throat chakra, it's your voice, it's your expression, it is speaking. Fortune is in here as well. I'm seeing, you have fortune also at 20 degrees in Virgo, and it's in the first house. You can literally make money through this, and it's actually conjuncting the Mercury too, and it's actually conjuncting the Venus as well. So no matter what you do in terms of you speaking, and using your throat chakra, you have to be seen, to basically activate that abundance, because it is in the first house and it's also conjuncting the Venus. And also, basically, when you have that attractive energy to you, why not be seen? Do you know what I mean? Why not take it to your advantage, right? Or even let's say you wanted to start a business, or let's say you maybe have already done this, right? Or whatever it is. Let's say you're looking for a job, networking. You know what I mean? That's not Mercury in the first house. It's all about who you know. And then even Venus in the first is the party host, right? Knowing a lot of people, connecting people together, that's what the energy is all about. So when you're kind of in this element, right, of doing all of this, knowing all of these people, right, it helps you progress, because also fortune is in here as well. Fortune being in here, you can literally activate abundance through all of these things, You have Mercury conjunct Pluto, and you have that Scorpio in the third house. That's interesting, because sometimes this energy can struggle in school, yes, because it's a little bit out of body, Sometimes certain traumatic things might happen with the Mercury conjunct Pluto when you're younger, could have affected you, let's say, in school. But again, all these energies you can clear out, obviously, as time goes on. These energies can be cleared out, especially if you're aware of it, and also it's you do go through secondary progressions as well. But sometimes this energy can struggle in school, because it's I find with Mercury conjunct Pluto, Pluto does deal with trauma of some sort. Sometimes if something traumatic takes place, it could take up a lot of your brain space, for example. And in that particular case, you might be constantly thinking about that, or not really focusing, let's say, in the present, because your mind is going somewhere else, right? So Mercury conjunct Pluto, again, just like any of the energies, you have the light side and you have the shadow side. When it's in the shadow side, when it is underdeveloped, when it's not operating in its highest alignment, well, this particular energy, again, can go into hypervigilance, right? Constantly calculating things, right? And it's all rooted in self-preservation, and the self-preservation is rooted in whatever that traumatic event was, right? With Pluto, a lot of the time, it is connected to abandonment of some sort with Plutonian energy, right? So whether it's physical abandonment, whether it's emotional abandonment, whether it is whatever type of abandonment, some sort of loss and abandonment case, usually what Pluto is connected to. So then, having Mercury conjunct Pluto, you're constantly thinking of ways to not end up in that situation, right? Or, it's all self-preservation, right? So you always want to kind of get the best case scenario for yourself, right? Which is fine. I think all humans have some form of self-preservation at the end of the day, which people do need, you know what I mean, to operate down here on this earth plane. But this energy, when it's in the shadow, can really go into the extreme. That's kind of what I'm getting at. You know what I mean? Really hyper vigilant, thinking about the 50 possible options for every single case scenario. Every time you make a decision, you're okay, if I do it this can play out this way. If I do it this can play out that way, right? And that wastes a lot of your mental space. Now, when I tap into your energy, once again, I feel you have maybe grown out of this energy, or overcome it, or alchemize it within, right? Because the divine version of this, and the divine version of this, maybe it affected you in the earlier part of your life, but the divine version of Mercury conjunct Pluto is someone who is able to be 10 steps ahead. You're always playing chess, not checkers, but it's it's serving you, It's you are basically living through your intuition, is basically what that is, and that is what is helping you make moves, right? This energy can be very good at business. They can be very good at investments. You can also see them, let's say, as business analysts for companies, these types of things, because you have that type of mind, right? Especially when it comes to business, even having Pluto in the first house, When it comes to business, again, you can see where something will go. And also Uranus in the first house, you're a little bit ahead of the time, right? So you can kind of see how something is going to play out. Well, in this particular case, again, it gets you an advantage. You know what I mean? You're a little bit ahead of the crowd, right? So again, if you're into investments, or if you're into stocks, or if you're into anything of that sort, you're gifted in that area to see, right? Let's say you look into a certain stock or whatever it is, right? Let's say it's crypto, wherever, this is manifesting, especially when it comes to business, or even if it's you're investing in a business, right? Let's say you're an investor, right? when you're investing in something, well, in that particular case, okay, you're going to be able to see the trajectory of where that thing is going to go, okay? So it's very intelligent, it's very intellectual, but it's operating more so on the intuitive plane, okay, is basically what that is. So very strong energy here with the Mercury energy once again, and also this helps you in a lot of realms, especially that Mercury conjunct Pluto. You can see through people, you can read people, right? Let's say you're trying to sell something, you're a salesperson, you'll be able to read that person to see what that person needs and how you can pitch the sale to, you know, get the person to buy the product. You know what I mean? Especially if you're into business, for example, and also actually what's interesting here is Mercury in the first, the Gemini rising undertone energy, can actually work in sales, okay? They can work in sales, they can work in marketing, even with the Venus in the first house, they can be in PR, they can be in international relations, for example, like, again, something that deals with people, okay, for example, like, absolutely. It could be a teacher too, okay, it could be a teacher as well with the energy, especially because you do have Mercury conjunct Jupiter, like an actual teacher, right, in school, or overall it could be indirectly being a teacher, you know what I mean, just like sharing your life experience, like a motivational speaker, you know what I mean? So we can manifest in a lot of different ways, but the Mercury conjunct Pluto, again, you know, these people are going to be very good at psychology. They're going to be good because, again, you spend so much time analyzing people, right? Very good at psychology. Astrology could be something that you're interested in. Criminology, like all these things, okay, with that Plutonian energy. You're really, really gifted. Again, also, because Venus is in the first, you're gifted with pulling the people in and then analyzing them, okay, and then also helping them transmute, whether it's directly or indirectly. Now, what I will say when this energy is angry, okay, and even having the Pluto in the first house, it's that Scorpio stinger. I'm sure you've heard of that, right? So if this energy is angry, you know, they can kind of bring people's shadows to the surface prematurely, okay? For example, where it's like, you know, you're upset in an argument and then you're going to be like, well, you're doing it because of this, okay? And some sort of shadow trait that they have, and most people are unaware, and then automatically they're going to be like, what are you talking about? That's not what this argument is about, right? But you see through that, right? So it's like, it depends, right? Because it's like, it's a healing energy when it's in the divine version, and it's about figuring out when you can tell people these things, okay, or share it. But when it's in the shadow version, or the shadow version of itself, well, in that particular case, what could take place is that stinger comes out and then you kind of throw it in people's faces, kind of like, you know, as a way to sting the person is basically what that is. So it depends, right? At what point of time, you know, this energy is on the evolutionary journey. But yes, you have the shadow side and you have the divine side. I feel like you're more so probably in the divine energy now, okay? Venus. Your Venus is in Virgo, okay? And it is in the first house. You do have Moon and Venus in Virgo, okay? So having Moon and Venus in Virgo, I'm just checking. No, they are not conjunct. No, they're not conjunct. They're too far, but still, okay? You know, in terms of women in your life, and also the mother because the Moon, but also it could be women overall, or people who operate out of that feminine energy, okay? You could be very critical, or you could attract very critical partners to you, okay? So this is the thing. It's in your energy field, so it's either you or you attract this type of person to you. Now, you may have, let's say, progressed out of this already. We'd have to check the progress chart. I'm just looking at the degrees. Potentially, you could have already progressed out of these energies. I mean, the moon progresses every 2 years, so for sure. But the Venus, again, we'd have to check. But still, it's at 19 degrees, so potentially you could have progressed out of this, which could be nice, okay? Because when you progress out of this, you kind of get out of that critical energy, right? So you're either critical or you're looking for an ideal type of partner, or they're like this towards you. Now the thing is, what's interesting here as well is you also have the descendant in Pisces, okay? So this is seeing people through a rose-colored lens. So there's a whole energy here that could be taking place, let's say when it comes to relationships. It could be, again, in your friends, or it could be romantic, or it could be business partners, of an energy of you maybe putting people on a pedestal, idealizing them, but then also criticizing them at the same time because they're not living up to this image that you have of them, okay? Or like, it's kind of like a sobering moment sometimes for that descendant in Pisces energy, okay? The seventh house being in Pisces, the seventh house being your relationships as well, which is interesting to me because you actually have Chiron in the seventh house overall, and you're actually meant to be healing through your relationships in this lifetime, okay? And also Chiron, okay, and the seventh house can be like the descendant, can be our shadow self as well. It could also be healing a lot of your shadows through relationships as well. I'm just checking to see the Chiron here. It's further away from the descendant, so it's not necessarily conjunct here, okay, with the Chiron, but still it's basically in the seventh house. So you're basically healing through a lot of your relationships in this lifetime, okay? And again, it could be romantic, it could be your friends, it could be your partners, because all these things can happen in your friendships as well, okay? With the seventh house being in Pisces and the Venus being in Virgo, okay? A lot of, again, you know, seeing an ideal version of someone or the potential or who they could be, but then at the same time criticizing them. Or like, it's kind of like I mentioned, like a sobering moment sometimes with this energy, that seventh house in Pisces, where it's like, you know, it can be deceptive, that Piscean energy sometimes. So it's like, sometimes it projects, it depends. Again, you know, you could feel like the person deceived you, okay, but you could also maybe be like this toward people as well, you know what I mean, without like doing it on purpose, because there could be a lot of, again, people projecting a dream onto you. Do you know what I mean? Because it is in your chart overall. So there could be a lot of like, again, if someone projects something onto you, like it's this miscommunication energy that could take place. Maybe again, you have progressed out of this, so it could be something of the past, for example, but at the same time, right? You know, there could be a lot of this, like, again, seeing an ideal version of someone and then feeling deceived by that person, but it's not really the person that's deceiving you. It's just kind of like the energy actually that's taking place in here, the Pisces descendant, because again, this is a romantic person, right? They're looking for that ideal one true love, that ideal love story. You know what I mean? So that's that descendant in Pisces. But the thing is, through that, okay, and also in combination with the 12th house that you got going on in your chart as well, you know, through that whole journey, again, you can put the wrong people, first of all, on pedestals. Second of all, you can see the best in someone, but that could not necessarily be who they are in the physical realm, because people can be super fragmented, right? So you can potentially tap into a, you know, certain aspect of that person, right? Which is, again, you know, the higher self. And that's what's the struggle with these energies as well, because you're psychic, you're more intuitive, you're usually tapping into the higher self, right? Version of someone or who they could be, but then who they are in the physical realm, they could be very fragmented. You know what I mean? They could be, you know, very much not integrated, the higher self and the lower self, right? So there could be this whole push-pull energy that does take place between this, and like also through that, let's say in the relationship, you could be critical of them, or again, this could happen to you as well because of the fact that you have Sun in the 12th and the Sun square Neptune energy also. You know, again, people could project a dream onto you, and unconsciously maybe you feed into that at least for a period of time, and then they could feel deceived, right? So it's like, it's interesting to see with the 12th house and the Piscean energy how it plays out. It's not really anything that anybody is doing, it's just the way that the energy is. Okay, so in that particular case, something that you might have to master, or maybe have mastered already by this point in time, is trying to see someone for who they actually are in the physical realm. Okay, not seeing who they could be, you know, if they were healed or if they were integrated, like really looking at their actions and seeing, okay, is this person where they need to be, or do they have more work that they need to do on themselves? Because otherwise, you probably get drained, okay, in these situations. That could be something that takes place. Now you have Venus conjunct Jupiter. This is awesome, okay? Because this is an abundance of options, let's say when it comes to relationships or friendships as well, or business partnerships, okay? Now, what I will say with this energy as well, sometimes when you have too many options, you might not know who to pick, right? Because there's too many options, right? It's the paradox of choice. But regardless, Venus conjunct Jupiter, like this energy, loves to meet all kinds of people, okay? Again, you know, people from all walks of life, people from all different types of places. You can meet people abroad, let's say with Venus conjunct Jupiter. If you don't go abroad, it's people abroad coming to you with Venus conjunct Jupiter. Also, you might love to, you know, have connections with people where you speak on, let's say, again, higher-minded types of things, right, with them. Okay, and also Venus can be money as well, okay? So you can literally make money also, once again, through academia, let's say with Jupiter, okay? Let's say you go off and you learn a bunch of different things, or let's say you get a bunch of different certifications. You can make money through this way as well. With Venus conjunct Jupiter, it's nice. This is a wealth placement for sure, okay? Because Jupiter is expanding Venus, which is also the wealth aspect of things, okay? It could be relationships, but it's also money, okay? which is interesting, okay, because the feminine energy is actually connected to money and abundance as well, okay, and the feminine energy, we all have feminine masculine energy within us, so it's nice to have this energy. And also, you know, again, it could be good energy for, let's say, making money through academia, or let's say it's public speaking, for example, with the other energies that are taking place in your chart. Let's say it's a motivational speaker, let's say it's a professor, for example, with this energy as well. Let's say it's someone who, again, creates their own philosophy, for example, okay? You go off, you learn a bunch of different things, you learn a bunch of different religions, you come back and you teach, okay? That's Jupiter, goes off, learns, comes back, teaches, okay? That's basically what's going on with that. You have Venus conjunct Pluto, another wealth placement. It's usually other people's money, okay? So this is another placement for business, let's say, or investors. Like, let's say you want to write a book or something of that sort. Probably better to have an investor, for example, right? Obviously, you have the free will to do what you want, okay? But it's like people want to invest in you, okay? They basically see this abundance potential within you, okay? When you have Venus conjunct Pluto in terms of money, okay? So it could be this, but you also have a lot of sexual energy, so you could be very attractive to people as well with the Venus conjunct Pluto. Now, also, Pluto can be the shadow of the human and the shadow of the self. So when it comes to relationships, again, it could be you, or you could attract people like this to you, people who are jealous, people who are possessive, people who are manipulative, people who are controlling, okay? So it's that self-preservation energy coming up once again, except now it comes up in terms of your relationships as well, okay? So it could be complex because there could be a lot of, like, again, you know, because you have that descendant in Pisces, really looking for this like one true love, and especially because it's Pluto too, the Venus conjunct Pluto, you know, really looking for that mind, body, spirit connection. And then if you do feel like you found it, it could be a hard time letting go. That's Pluto. Pluto has a hard time letting go, okay? But the second Pluto surrenders, and that's what Pluto is meant to learn, that lets go, that's when everything comes toward it. Same thing in terms of, like, let's say money, right? Maybe this is something that you've already mastered, right, in this lifetime already, but it's like as soon as like this energy really lets go, because they really want to have the money, they want to have the wealth and all these things, as soon as they let go, they're like, okay, whatever, okay, whatever happens. That's when it all starts pouring in, okay? So that's basically Venus conjunct Pluto. A lot of relationships are going to be intense, for example, and again, it could be you, or it could be people towards you, right, are acting this way. Because again, you yourself with the Venus in the first house, you pull people in energetically, right? But it's like, just because you're pulling people in doesn't mean that all those people, yes, are maybe the best types of people, or maybe they don't have your best interests at heart. Maybe some of them are opportunists. Again, you might have to, or maybe have already in this lifetime, mastered seeing through that rose-colored lens, idealizing people, seeing the perfect image of who they could be, okay? Really seeing who they actually are. Something that you are mastering in this lifetime, because the Venus conjunct Pluto, it could be a lot of, like, again, seeing this ideal version of someone, but actually it could be super fragmented, and you could have this whole dilemma inside, right? Because it's like you're trying to hold on to who they could be, or really trying to fix people. That's something that you might have to, you know, stay away from, or again, master in this lifetime. For example, is this urge to help people, or like try to help people in terms of trying to fix them. But the thing is, you can't fix anybody. Do you know what I mean? People have to want to fix themselves. It's different if they come to you, you know, and they're like, okay, what's your wisdom on this, or what's your opinion on this? And they're open to it, and they're already at that point of their journey, right? But it's like, again, especially having Venus and Virgo, all of this Virgo energy in here, you know, you really, and even the 12th house, really, you can see the potential in someone, right? You can see where they could go, and even, let's say, you can see what they could do in this lifetime, but you could also see their wounds, but they might not be ready to address that, right? So really dealing with fragmented people and not allowing them to basically waste your time is really, really what that is, okay? If they come to you and they're open to it and they're already on that journey, that's a different story, but it's like you trying to initiate them, right? It could be a lot of backlash towards you, okay? Because again, you have that Pluto in the first house, you know, again, you could have that sticker, but then people could be like this towards you as well. Keep this in mind, right? Because it's like when people aren't ready to face, especially like certain ego things or certain shadow things or all these types of things, right? If they're not ready to face this, okay? Well, if you bring it up, then you become the scapegoat, okay? And all of that negative energy gets directed towards you because you're the one who triggered it within them. So then I think you're doing something, right, to trigger it within them, but you're just kind of like stating the obvious, but they're not ready to hear it, right? It's a self-preservation thing that also humans have, okay? So that's basically what is going on with that. Now, Also, okay, you got Mars in Leo. It's in the 11th house. Mars in Leo, this could be a prideful placement. For example, when it comes to conflict, you could have a lot of pride, okay, when it comes to, let's say someone offends you or you're mad, right? This energy can kind of put up like an energetic wall. They might not necessarily want to speak out of pride, right? So maybe that's something that you have mastered or transmuted in this lifetime. You know, Mars and Leo, in terms of ambition and what they're interested in, they need to be on that stage, okay? They need to be on that stage, they need to be seen, okay? Especially with all the other energies that are taking place in here, okay? Even like, again, that Venus in the first house. This is an energy that needs to be seen. And it's interesting, I'm also seeing the second house, Libra, okay? So your second house is occupied by Libra. You can literally make money through Libra types of things, okay? So this could be, again, through your connections, through networking, right? This energy that you've got going on in your chart isn't really an energy that's meant to be in hiding, okay? Somewhere in a corner, you know, you might get overwhelmed energetically by people, right? Again, because you do have 12 houses, you could absorb a lot, but you're actually meant to kind of transmute that in your corner and then go back out into the world and engage with people, okay? Because this is very much like a people person, okay? This energy is going on in here, meant to be engaging and interacting with people and being seen is basically what that is, okay? That's basically what's going on with that. So Mars in Leo, anything that's Leo-esque, so being seen, being on that stage, you could be teaching once again. All these things could basically motivate you, okay? Being seen, being on that stage, being a teacher, being an entertainer, you could be super funny, super goofy. For example, with Mars in Leo, okay, this could also sometimes be a politician. I've seen it with politicians as well, Mars in Leo, but all these things could basically motivate you. You have Mars in the 11th house. Mars in the 11th house in terms of motivation, okay, things that could motivate you could be, let's say, the internet, AI, tech, for example, okay? All these things could like motivate you, right? This is kind of like the direction you might, you know, be interested in pursuing. Let's say you want to start a startup, for example, like that could motivate you, okay, with Mars in the 11th. Now, Mars in the 11th isn't the most argumentative energy overall, and neither is Leo. Leo is ruled by the sun, right? So like Leo, you know, they don't really like to argue. Like, yes, they are a fire sign. They're not really argumentative because it is the sun. They want to keep everything high vibe and high vibrational. But, you know, if their ego gets hurt, okay, or again, you know, there's something where, you know, again, the pride might come up, right? Where they might not want to give in. Let's say when it comes to an argument, like the stubbornness energy, because it is fixed, okay? And let's say there is an argument, they might not necessarily be the ones to give in, for example, right? So again, maybe this is something that you've transmuted, but that's kind of Mars in Leo when it comes to anger and arguments. But the thing is, Mars in the 11th, because it is a sign of friendship, this might not necessarily be the most argumentative Mars, okay? When you have Mars in the 11th house, Mars in the 11th is like an innovator, basically is what it is. Because you can kind of look at Mars as your solar plexus, okay? And Mars being part of the solar plexus chakra, this is just my own opinion from what I've observed, is like, you know, this is part of your identity, right? So part of your identity is Leo and it's the 11th house. This is like a rebel, okay? It's basically what that is. Hey, someone who can't be controlled is really, really what that is, which is interesting because with Venus conjunct Pluto, you could attract potentially a lot of controlling people to you. And then these people could make you want to rebel even more, okay? For example, right? And this energy kind of goes to the beat of its own drum. You know what I mean? Like, again, Mars in the 11th house isn't argumentative, you know, because again, it's that Aquarius energy, the 11th house, right? You know, it just kind of goes off and does its own thing, right? Let's say there is an argument, because it is the sign of friendship at the end of the day, or like the house of friendship as well. Mars in the 11th house, and like they kind of do still want to keep their connections, and it is very detached energy as well. So again, not the most argumentative, let's say, energy as well, but like let's say there is an argument, you can just kind of be like, okay, whatever, like I'm just gonna go off and do my own thing, right? Like it could go into that direction, okay? So Mars in the 11th house. Now, also, you have Jupiter in Virgo in the 12th. Jupiter in Virgo is blessed because they can literally find jobs so fast, okay? Jupiter in Virgo, you know, you can find a job within 1 month. And you're also blessed with abundance of jobs, right? When you have this energy, so you could have worked on a lot of different jobs throughout your life, right? You could have switched jobs a lot of the time. You could have maybe not worked and then found a job really quickly. When you have Jupiter in Virgo, you're also blessed in the area of health, okay? When you have Jupiter in Virgo, okay? Now, the thing is, being blessed in the area of health, now here's the thing, you have all this Virgo energy, so you could be very health conscious already, but you could also kind of go into hypochondria energy as well, which is something that happens with like Pluto and Virgo overall, like the whole generation, but I'll get to that in just a second. So yes, with all this Virgo energy in here, but the thing is sometimes, again, remember how I was saying the extreme of all of the signs, right? The, oppositional energy, how it can kind of go into the shadow sometimes. Jupiter and Virgo sometimes, let's say when they are living, let's say in an unhealthy type of vibe, they can really push it to the edge, right? And Jupiter keeps blessing you, right? You still being healthy even though you're eating, not well and all these types of things. Well, Jupiter is kind of like, okay, well, I'm not going to keep blessing you, okay? That's kind of how Jupiter works. Like, it keeps blessing you in a certain area until it's kind of like, okay, that's enough. You know what I mean? Like, it's time for you to come out of hedonism energetically, okay? So that's another way that this energy could manifest. But overall, blessed in this area, you can make money really fast. And, like, it's interesting because Jupiter is ruled by Pisces in ancient astrology. So when it is, in Virgo, it's in the oppositional energy here, and people say that is not the best placement for Jupiter. But here's the thing. We have to look at the Earth plane and the Earth plane energies, right? The Earth plane is ruled by the Earth signs. So when it comes to work, when it comes to making money, when it comes to routine, you're blessed in this area, right? So you do well down here, okay, with the Jupiter in Virgo. Now you have it in the 12th house. Again, another way that you can make money or abundance, because Jupiter's money and abundance, could be through, let's say, the higher mind once again. It could be the metaphysical world. It could be the psychic world. Let's say astrology. It could be even film. It could be theater. It could be anything to do with a screen as well. Absolutely. Film writing, for example, or, screenwriting, or let's say writing music. Music could even, let's say, bring you, ideas and abundance as well. Now, with 12th house, what I always say to 12th housers is try to stay within the body, right? Try to stay away from substances. So that's the thing with the 12th house. Once again, Jupiter would bless you in this area, but it's like, eventually Jupiter's kind of like, okay, now you're kind of pushing it over the edge. Do you know what I mean? So that's the thing, because the 12th house person has to focus on grounding into the physical plane and into the physical reality. And, as long as you have a goal or an ambition or something that you are working toward, right, you are able to balance the energy within. If you have too much free time and you don't have a goal and you're kind of scattered all over the place with the 12th house energy, well, at that point in time, what can happen is you can definitely go into, again, escapism, substances. I don't feel this for you, for your energy, maybe when you were younger, for example, right? Because again, you probably progressed out of a lot of these energies, but yes, it is prone to escapism. Now, escapism can be on a range. Yes, it could be through substances like alcohol, for example, but it could also be escaping through overthinking, or escaping through shopping, or escaping through watching TV. Do you know what I mean? So it is prone to having escapist tendencies, but the way to balance this is to have some sort of goal or ambition. That's the way that I see it, okay? That's that 12th house. So Jupiter is blessing you in this area of the 12th house, okay? Also psychic gifts and abilities as well. You have Saturn in Aries. It is in the A house or retrograde. Your North Node is also in Aries, and it's in the A house. North Node, South Node are always retrograde for absolutely everybody, okay? Interesting, okay? You're going to be going through your Saturn return, so your second Saturn return within the next year or so when Saturn starts going into Pisces. It is connected to that 8th house, okay? So Saturn in Aries, this subsect, so this is a generational planet, so the house affects you more, and then the sign affects the subset of the generation, okay? So Saturn in Aries, basically the subset of your generation got restricted in the area of the self, okay? Self-expression, okay? Being your own person, being your own individual, right? So that's something that, again, maybe you have mastered with the first Saturn return. If not, the theme is going to be coming up once again, okay? Saturn in the 8th house, this is the area, anything to do with the sacral chakra, so anything to do with sexuality, vulnerability, intimacy, anything to do with your sexual energy overall, okay, your emotions, expressing your emotions. It's interesting to me, okay, because Saturn is karma, okay? So you're basically overcoming anything to do with that sacral chakra. Maybe like, let's say when you were younger, you didn't want to be vulnerable and express your feelings and your emotions, and now you're mastering that. And it's actually connected to your North Node, which is in Aries, and in the 8th house, which your North Node deals with, first of all, you picking yourself in this lifetime, because in a previous lifetime with the Libra South Node and it being in the 2nd house, it could have been very much a lot of sacrificing the self for the people around you, okay? Which is interesting. Remember how I mentioned the people-pleasing tendencies of the undertone of having the Libra rising, the Venus in the 1st house, right? So you're not meant to focus on other people. You're actually meant to focus on the self in this lifetime. But then Saturn's here, right? So Saturn restricted this for you. So you're breaking free from this, breaking free from, again, Saturn can be the father. So the father could have restricted you. It could have been the dominant masculine role in your life, or just like teachers and managers and authority figures, right? It could restrict you in the area of the self. So for example, you could struggle to fully come into your power, right? Let's say with that North Node in Aries, because of maybe the fear of authoritative figures, whoever it is, whether it's a manager, so on and so forth. Let's say that work, you want to pitch a job, you know, you might have the fear of, let's say, expressing something, or let's say pitching something, for example, because of the fact that you might feel like, let's say, the manager might not approve, but then that's connected to childhood. And by the way, I'm not a psychologist. I know I'm saying this at the end of the reading, but that's always my disclaimer, okay? But everything does come from the original two caregivers. So North Node being in Aries and in the 8th house, you're here to basically help transform and transmute energy through the self, right? So you overcome something, or maybe you start something, or maybe you start a business, or maybe, you know, you climb the corporate ladder, for example, like whatever way, shape, or form it manifests. Basically, you know, you going through this journey, you're assisting others, okay, in terms of their transmutation journey as well. Let's say maybe you even write a book, for example, okay? But all of this is going to be connected to you getting in tune with your sacral chakra, getting in tune with your feelings, with your emotions, basically, is what that is. Because that is the feminine energy within. We all have feminine, masculine energy within us. And then when you do get in tune with all of this, okay, then your North Node kind of gets activated. It's kind of the way that I'm seeing it, okay? And again, you could have been restricted in this area by a father figure, for example, when you were younger, or dominant masculine role in your life. The Saturnian energy could also be, let's say, again, the managers, teachers, and so on and so forth. They could restrict you in this expression, right? Of, let's say, again, getting in tune with the feelings and even the expression of the self, right? So that's part of the life purpose for you in this lifetime. Okay, and also your North Node is trining the Mars, okay? So another part of the life purpose for you here is this Mars and Leo being seen, being on some sort of stage, right? Maybe it's also, let's say, writing a book or something of that sort, because it is in the 11th house. It could also, let's say, be something like, you know, you start a startup, okay? Or you start a tech company, or let's say, you know, something that will help people change and transform. You are the first one doing that, right? Because it is Aries, okay? You are stepping away from an expectation of you, okay? Whether it's the people around you and so on and so forth, especially because that South Node is in Libra, okay? The South Node being in Libra, it's like the people around you, okay? So it's interesting because at the same time, even though you're pulling all these people in and you're talking to all these people and you're maybe having a lot of friends, at the same time, these people could be pulling you into your South Node, right? You're meant to transmute that energy, right? And kind of focus back on the self, okay? So maybe relationships, let's say, could be distracting for you in one way, shape, or form, or the people around you, or again, you know, sometimes I see it as like people have certain sections in their life, okay? Whereas like sometimes the earlier part of someone's life could be you clearing the karma, for example, with all of these people that you engage with and encounter because of the South Node in Libra, right? Maybe developing strong interpersonal skills, okay? Energy that could have maybe not been expressed in a previous lifetime, because it is in the 2nd house. You were also meant to master, let's say, the earthly plane in that previous lifetime, right? Maybe you were very much about the day-to-day. Maybe you were very much about like just like the safety aspect of things, because that's that 2nd house, right? Also, it's also all about mastering the self-worth as well, right? So all of this could have taken place in a previous lifetime for you, okay, with the Libra in the 2nd house. And the way that I see it these days is like maybe you mastered it, but maybe you didn't get to fully express it. So you want to take the South Node and see how can you apply this knowledge in a North Node type of way, right? So this lifetime, it's like, yes, you know, you might be friendly, you might have a lot of friends, but it's like, again, using this network and the people that you meet to help you get to where it is that you're trying to go, okay? Which is the North Node in Aries, which still deals with the self, the expression of the self, being in your truth is basically what that is, okay? And also the 8th house in here, again, something to do with change and transformation, helping people change and transform, right? But again, you don't want to get sucked into other people's things, right? That's the whole thing here, kind of what I feel like might be taking place, right? Especially because the North Node, South Node, like the people around you, and it's interesting, I feel like I mentioned this earlier as well, the people around you, right, could kind of, again, in a way be distractions, right? Because like you could get sucked into their things, especially having the 12th house in here. The energy has the tendency to merge to like everybody around them, right? So that's kind of what you're mastering in this lifetime, right? Being grounded, being in the self, and yes, having the connections, having the people around you, but not getting merged into them or getting distracted by them is really what that is. Now, in terms of these generational energies, so you have Uranus and Virgo. I already spoke on the first house. Once again, the sign affects the subset of the generation, and then the house affects you more, okay? So Pluto and Virgo, I call this generation the healers overall, okay? Because this is the boomers 2 generation, okay? Basically incarnated to, a lot of these people brought a lot of this metaphysical stuff to the surface. I find a lot of them were healers. We started seeing a lot of, let's say, mediums or psychics, you know, become more public during this era, right? That's basically what it is. So, you know, it's a healing type of generation. It doesn't just have to be through psychic work. It doesn't have to just be through metaphysical work, okay? That's just one of the manifestations of it. But that's basically what it is, because Uranus and Virgo could be like, let's say, even breakthroughs within the generation, and then, of course, yourself, because you're part of the subset of the generation as well, okay? This could be breakthroughs, because Uranus is inventions, right? It could be breakthroughs in science, or let's say, not just science, but like, let's say medicine, for example, right? Like that type of science, right? Like the medical field, or like the healing fields, right? Let's say you yourself, because you're a part of the subset of this generation, you bring, let's say, some of these things to the surface, right? Because Uranus can also be a rebel. It could be, let's say, traditional medicine, yes, so breakthroughs in this, or it could be going away from tradition in this area, which again, we saw a lot of these people be more so unconventional healers, right? Whether it's psychics or mediums or people who talk about the metaphysical world overall, right? Energy workers, energy healers, right? So that's basically this generations. You can look at it as like karma, right? You as well, because you're part of the subset of the generation. But a lot of these individuals brought a lot of these things to the surface, right? And because also the subset of the generation has like the Uranus conjunct Pluto, they're breaking free from a lot of, like, again, maybe traditions from the past, right? Like that's Pluto. Pluto, wherever it goes through, it's breaking through that area is basically what that is, right? So that's basically what it is, okay? So a lot of rebellion in this area within the subset of the generation, and a lot of breaking free from maybe traditional ways of, let's say, again, doing medicine, right? Whether there was breakthroughs in that area, okay? Or breaking free from it altogether, okay? You and the subset of this generation, okay? Neptune is in Scorpio, so basically the subset of this generation, right? So it gets smaller and smaller the more in you go, right? From Pluto onwards. So Pluto is the whole boomers too, and then some people within the generation are gonna have Neptune and Scorpio, and then less are gonna have Uranus and Virgo. I'm sure you catch my drift, right? So Neptune and Scorpio, you know, this is, again, it's the subset of your generation. This is not seeing the area of sexuality clearly, not seeing the area of vulnerability clearly, not seeing the area of emotions clearly as well, right? So getting in tune with the emotions and the feelings and the vulnerability, right, is maybe a karmic thing for this subset of the generation, for example, okay? And also, another thing that this generation is meant to break free from or break through is, let's say, criticism, hypochondria, like I mentioned as well, because it does deal with, like, again, healing that Virgo energy as well, being of service, right? A lot of people within this generation could have, let's say, been of service to everybody around them, whether it's their family, whether it's their friends, whether it's their parents as well, right? And then they get energetically burnt out. So that's another thing that this generation is mastering, the Pluto and Virgo as well. Now, Neptune and Scorpio, the thing is, you know, Neptune kind of dreams and fantasizes whatever area it's in. So having Neptune and Scorpio, you know, again, you and the subset of this generation could dream about this area, right? Like dreaming about, let's say, certain fantasies, or let's say anything to do with the emotional world, or anything to do with Scorpio types of things, for example. So the trick with Neptune is you want to take the dreaming and you want to see how can you anchor it into this physical realm and into this physical reality, so you're not dreaming about it all the time, right? So for example, like let's say, because it's Neptune, it could be like, let's say you get information or downloads, right? And it's in Scorpio, let's say something to do with energy work or energy healing, right? You or the subset of your generation, you want to figure out how can you ground this into this physical plane and into this physical reality. Otherwise, you're spending more time escaping through that, right? It turns into an escapism energy. So you and the subset of your generation, okay? Third house Neptune is another psychic placement, okay? Third house Neptune is another psychic placement you could channel through speech. When you have third house Neptune, okay, basically like, again, through you talking, the information comes through, okay? It could be this. It could be when you're thinking a lot, you get downloads, okay? Or you get information, or you're just like dreaming, or you're daydreaming, right? So again, because Neptune has the tendency to escape, you want to figure out how can you ground in this area. Now you have a lot of this good Mercury energy taking place in your chart, so you might not necessarily be too prone to escapism through the mind, but let's say, again, it depends. This is what I mean. It's like if you have a goal, you're not escaping through the mind because you're focused on the goal, so you're getting, let's say, information for that goal, right? Let's say you want to write a book, for example. Even Neptune in the third could be interested even in like writing, let's say, or like poetry, or let's say it's usually more romantic types of writing. So it could be like screenplays, or it could be like music, for example, right? Neptune in the third house. So anything, again, because when you're getting this information, right, you're going into the psychic realms. Anytime we're dreaming and we're daydreaming, you're going to the psychic realms, you're going out of body, basically, right? So here's the thing, to ground this energy, you know, is all about having a goal, right? When you have a goal, then you're focused on the goal and you get information for that, right? Let's say you're thinking about, okay, you know, I want to write this poem, or I want to write this book, and that's all you're thinking about, well, that's what you get the downloads for, right? If you have too much free time and you don't have a goal, then you're just going off into the ethers and into the crown chakra, right? Which is fine, it depends, right? At the end of the day, what everybody is trying to do. If you have a goal or you have an ambition in mind and you're spending more time going off into the daydreaming world, well, then it's a struggle. Do you know what I mean? So it's a matter of figuring out how can you ground this energy, right? You probably could be a very good psychic with a lot of these energies in here as well. And again, it doesn't always have to be for other people. It's usually a call and a pull if you're using that type of gift for other people. Most of the time for people, when they do have certain gifts, it is just for themselves. You know what I mean? Helping you, you know, get the information that you need, confirmation in the background to go to where it is that you're trying to go in this lifetime, okay? So super psychic, super intuitive, in tune is basically what that is, okay? Now, you have Lilith in Gemini. It is in the 9th house. This is the shadow self, okay? So Lilith in Gemini might struggle with speech, actually, okay? I don't feel this for you anymore. Maybe this was the earlier part of your life, okay? Struggling with expression, struggling with communication. Sometimes they might struggle with lying as well. I'm not saying this is you, but that's the shadow of Gemini, okay? Struggling with multitasking, for example, wanting to do everything, getting nothing done, being here, being there, being everywhere. Absolutely, okay? Could manifest in this way with the Lilith in Gemini. Lilith in the 9th house. The shadow of Lilith in the 9th house can really go into hedonism, okay? Can really go into hedonism, you know, the Lilith in the 9th house. So again, just being aware that this energy could be something that's taking place. Again, I don't feel it for your energy field, but that's just something that can take place, okay, with this energy, because it is the shadow side and the shadow self, okay? Chiron and Aries in the 7th house are retrograde, okay? So you're healing through your relationships, like I mentioned earlier. Retrograde, you're doing it again, okay? And by the way, North Node, South Node are always retrograde for everybody in everyone's charts, okay? So back to the Chiron, you're healing through your relationships, okay? With Chiron in the 7th house, okay? So this is going to be something important to you, okay, in this lifetime, okay, to again have these relationships, but again, not get sucked into them, okay? Because again, codependency could be a theme, and keep in mind, these relationships could be pulling you out of where it is that you're trying to go, because you also have Chiron in Aries, okay? Having Chiron in Aries, well, you're actually healing through the self, okay? Through your own independence, through being your own person, developing that strong solar plexus chakra, the confidence in the self, starting something, maybe being an athlete, maybe going to the gym, you know, all these things, right? That is Chiron in Aries. You're actually healing through the self, and it's interesting, right? Because your North Node actually, okay, is really close here. North Node is at 11 degrees and Chiron is at 2 degrees, okay? So they're pretty close to each other. So, you know, for you, it's interesting because part of your, you can even look at it as life purpose, or where you're heading in this lifetime is to heal the self, right? And like the wound, because the Chiron is the wounded healer, right? So there's a wound here around self-expression, okay? Around fully being able to express the self, okay? When you have Chiron in Aries, right? And it's interesting because you had that restriction as well with the Saturn, right? So that's what you're breaking free from in this lifetime, basically, right? And as you heal through this, you activate the North Node, okay? And then perhaps, you know, because you overcome it, you might assist other people as well in transmuting this energy. Because North Node in the 8th, The life purpose here is to transmute energy, right? It's an energy worker of some sort. And now transmuting energy can be on a huge range. You don't have to actually physically be doing anything, right? Sometimes you're transmuting for people through speaking, right? Sometimes it's through you writing a book, right? Because like you've expressed something in the book and somebody else resonates with it, and maybe something that you've learned, because again, it does deal with also a lot of the energy here overall in your chart, again, deals with Mercury, right? So something that you've learned, right? You know, could help somebody else save time, right? Because you learned it, and maybe they might be in the beginning of their situation, and it's like, hold on, you don't have to waste so much time. I've learned it. I've gone through it already, right? So it could be things like this, right? So transmuting energy is part of the overall life purpose here, okay? Fortune and Virgo in the first house. Now, I've spoken on this already, okay? This is money through, okay? Having a routine, basically money through anything Virgo-esque, helping people, being of service. And also the first house is the self, okay? Basically you being in something, right? So like, let's say, you know, with the first house, it's like, let's say a dancer, right? You have to physically be doing something, right? Or let's say you're the one giving presentations, or let's say someone who works in construction, or let's say someone who works in retail, or let's say someone who is a teacher because they stand all day. Do you know what I mean? Like you being physically in something is the self, right? You're making money through the self, right? And it's interesting because you have a bunch of first house energies. Once again, you are mastering the self in this lifetime, right? So maybe to the people around you, you might come off selfish, right? But the thing is, different souls have different paths, right? And you're actually meant to master the self in this lifetime, basically with all this first house energy, because you've already kind of mastered the relationships, especially with the South Node being in Libra. You master relationships. You're not meant to sacrifice for the people around you in this lifetime. You're actually meant to focus on the self. Now, with that being said, doesn't mean you can't be in relationships. It doesn't mean that at all. Actually, it just means that, you know, you want to come into your full self-alignment, and then when you're in your vibration of doing what you want to do in this lifetime, then people come to you that are on that same vibe. I hope that makes sense. They're not distractions anymore. They're part of your path. I really, really hope that makes sense. But to get there, you have to not be in a distraction energy, okay? So that's kind of how it works. So that's Fortune in the first house. Now you have Vertex in Aquarius in the sixth house. Vertex is a fated event, and this fated event puts you on your path, okay? So the house in here is going to be the person or people you experience the fated event through, and then the sign is going to be the vibe of this fated event, okay? So take it with a grain of salt. I always say to people, no need to sit in your room and be like, oh my gosh, what is the event? What is it going to be, right? No need to put fear on it, okay? So it's some sort of event. Maybe it took place already, okay? The sixth house could be through your colleagues. It could be through, let's say, your daily acquaintances. So let's say it is the mailman, or let's say it is the barber, or let's say it is the grocery store person, right? A daily acquaintance, someone that you know but you're not best friends with, okay? You experience an Aquarius type of event through this person, okay? So like, let's say literally through one of your colleagues at work, they introduced you maybe to astrology, for example, right? You learn about astrology, you learn more about yourself, boom, puts you on your path, right? A lot of things start to make sense, and you know, you kind of clear out the energies that are no longer serving you and focus on the ones that are. Random example, but it could be something like this. So, with all that being said, I'm going to wrap up your reading here. I do hope you enjoyed your natal chart reading. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to send me an email, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Beautiful rest of your day.